The Startup Cabin podcast is brought to you by Cedarwood. Cedarwood rents out senior CFOs to the tech industry from 1 to 5 days a week. For more, go to cedarwood.co. Welcome to the Startup Cabin podcast, where we have great stories from European entrepreneurs. And today we'll be talking with Torsten Mueller. He is co-founder and CMO over at the Berlin-based startup Tame. And Tame is helping you tame the information overload on Twitter, showing you all the relevant conversations, hashtags, and people at a glance. And for those of you who have been trying to get your company out into the media, trying to get some traction there, and maybe have not had the best of luck, Shumei and Torsten have had a lot of experience in PR and have had some really good success in getting themselves and their company out there in front of people's eyes. And they'll be talking about strategy of how they've actually done that. So that's all in this episode. Here it is.
Can you just introduce yourself? Who are you, and what does your company do?
My name's Torsten, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Tame. That's tame.it. And the name says it all. I mean, we're trying to tame the information overload on social media. And we've started with Twitter. So our approach is really to help people sift through the information overload, which is the big data amount of 500 million tweets per day. And Tame helps you to find the relevant conversations, to identify the relevant users, the topics, the links, everything that you need to get out of this massive amount of data that's being circulating every day anew.
Cool. So, what's the kind of the main clients you have? Is that PR people, marketing? Is it startups?
It's a mix of journalists, PR people, online marketers, more and more. Our background, like 2 of the 3 founders were journalists. I was also a journalist before. And we've created that tool in order to help journalists sift through Twitter data in their daily job routines, being in the editorial, and so on. But over time, we found that it's not only journalists that can make use of our tool, it's also PRs. And lately, a couple of online marketers have also recognized our platform. And so we're expanding from one segment to the next. But it's online marketing overall, if you want to say so.
Okay. So why? I mean, you're 3 founders, right? It's you and Frederick and Arno. Mm-hmm. And how do you meet?
I met Frederick in an international master's program. It's called Erasmus Mundus, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's looking for a great international network. In this case, it's journalism, but Erasmus Mundus has programs like in all different categories. But our program was journalism. We went through 3 or 4 countries in 2 years, and that's where I met Frederick. And we've been tackling a few other ideas early in 2010, 2011, trying to create a global journalism network, something to syndicate content all over the world, collaborative journalism, these kind of things. And we gradually moved on to this more technological approach, which became Tame. And at some point, we needed a hacker, we needed a developer. And Frederick was lucky enough to meet Arno at a conference of German alumni students, and basically pitched him the idea. And Arno was fond of it, so he packed his bags and came from Copenhagen to Berlin. I packed my bags, came from Hamburg to Berlin, and we started out from there.
Okay. And you've been around since 2012, right?
The whole thing started very late 2011. That's when we wrote the first draft of the initial business plan. Mm-hmm. We got funding in 2012, and the product's out there since 2013.
So had any one of you started companies before?
Yeah, well, my co-founder Arno did have a small company before, but basically selling IT services. And like I said, Frederick and I, we tried to get this journalism network off the ground, but it was definitely a hard time getting funding for a pure journalistic venture. So we never really got it off the ground completely. Only when we turned to the more technological approach, then we finally caught on. So I would say we're all first-time entrepreneurs.
And you got some investments from the German Ministry of Technology and Economics.
Yep, that's true. This is something I think maybe it's kind of special and unique about Europe, that in many countries you can look for funding that comes from the state or similar institutions. And we started out with an entrepreneurial stipend, which is basically EU money, old EU money, but being channeled through universities and other organizations in Germany. So you have to partner up with a university, or you might even spin off from a university. And it gives you a stipend to work on your project for 1 year. All the founders are being paid about 2,000 euros a month. And you get some extra money to buy some equipment, and that's how you start off. And it's absolutely great. I mean, when I talk to people over in the US and I tell them about government stipends for startups, they're pretty surprised about that.
Yeah, it's so different for them. They haven't seen that much before. For us, it's kind of in Europe. It's kind of that's the first thing people think about. It's like, okay, can we get some government funding for this? But you also did some kind of crowd investment campaign. Was it on companisto.de?
Yeah, or companisto.com. They also have an English side, and I think they're European-wide these days. Yeah, this is also something that is, I think, unique about the European or the German market, this crowd investing model, where you basically give up, you can call it virtual shares in a way, or profit participating loans. It's a difficult financial thing, but it works in a way that you invest in a startup, and if that startup might get sold, you get your share, or if that startup generates revenues or profits at the end of the year, you also get your share as a micro investor, but you're not sitting on the board. So that makes the whole process easy, because if you have, in our case, we had 808 small investors, but the company, Companisto, they all pooled them for us. So we only have to talk to one company for all this decision making, and we do have to report back to all these companists, to all these micro investors. But we don't have to talk to all 808 people individually when there is an important decision to make, which would be essentially the case if it was a classic investment.
So is it Companisto that you talk to then? Do they handle all that administration?
Yes, they do. Yeah, I mean, they're basically like a VC or seed investor. You do have to reach out to them and pitch them your idea, and you go to a due diligence process and all that kind of stuff. And when they pick you, you launch on the platform. You do have to prepare your campaign. It has to be good. There's a lot of work involved there. But in our case, we were lucky because the campaign really went off. And we were happy enough to secure 250,000 as our seed funding.
250,000 euros? Dollars?
Euros.
Euros.
Yeah.
Good for the listeners to know. If it were crowns, it would be a bit different in, the value.
Yeah, but euro with dollar, not so much these days.
No, exactly. And you did go through the German Silicon Valley Accelerator program as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another government thing here, sending startups over to the US, putting them in an office space in Silicon Valley or San Francisco in our case, and giving them a couple of mentors to facilitate market entry or to go for hunting investors, all these kind of things. So it's a very good program. It's no strings attached, so you don't have to give up any equity for that. But on the downside, you also have to invest your own private money to make it happen.
Okay, so they provide contacts and that part more.
Yeah, it's about a mentoring network, like a very close mentoring. You get one or two mentors that you really work consistently throughout these 3 or 6 months. You have to meet up with them every week, and you have your milestones. You try to reach them. So there's an intense work, but yeah, it's not like the other accelerator programs that might take some equity in return to really bring you to investors or these kind of things.
It's more of the government version.
Yeah, so
yeah, we have something.
Maybe it's a more light version.
So, was that the first time you had professional mentors?
Yes and no. We had mentors before from the university, for example, when we got up this government stipend. But these weren't people that had founded startups before. So I guess with the Accelerator, it was the first time we really met with people that had a proven track record in founding companies. So it's definitely a different kind of mentorship that we've got there. But it wasn't the first time, really.
What did you get out of it?
Well, we made our plans before we started this program, and the most important thing for us was to get in touch with Twitter directly. And we used the mentors to make a good plan, how to get in touch with a big company and how to pitch them our idea. And we eventually got into a partnership program. So we definitely reached our goal. We had a couple of other goals, like creating a little bit of buzz, doing some PR work in the US, also finding some early test customers, and we could reach all these targets. And the mentors were definitely a big help. On the other hand, I would also say it's also pretty tough coming as a German startup over to the US. It's not like they're handing everything to you on a silver plate. You really have to work for things to make them happen. So it's a very good initiative from the government to send startups over from Germany to see that it's not like, okay, I'll just go to the valley, found a company, and I'll be rich the next day. It's definitely a lot of hard work involved there.
A lot of startups I've been talking to, it's kind of a shock for them. It's actually, I think, a problem here in Europe. We have to become actually a bit tougher so the companies actually are prepared to do the work, because it feels like we're in a kind of this nice little bubble. And then, at least 5 companies talked to the last couple of months are saying like, yeah, people in Sweden or Scandinavia or Europe, they don't know how tough it is to break into the American market. It's a good experience, really good experience.
I totally agree. It's just such a tough competition out there. When you get all these founders coming from all these places all over the world, and they're basically the best people in these countries, and they go to the valley and try to make it happen there. So it's a very tough and fierce competition. Like, you meet 21, 22-year-old guys fresh off college there, and they pitch their idea to investors like they've been in the business for 20 years. So I was very astounded by that.
I can imagine. So I just wanted to get back to Tame. I was so curious. I mean, Twitter is a very specific platform. I know it's very good for actually reaching journalists and media, because most people in media are on Twitter. It's kind of I feel like it's kind of the official social media channel for media. They're so active there. And I think it's actually pretty easy to reach media there as well, compared to before Twitter. So how does Tame help people reach those kind of like PR goals, etc.?
Well, in a way, what PR should be about is not just reaching out to journalists, like, for no reason or bluntly, or just pitching your startup idea or whatever, just like that. What it should be about is, what Tame also helps you doing, is to identify relevant conversations and then get into these conversations and try to see what is the talk of town that people do care about, and then mix yourself in. And that's where Tame is a great help, because it sort of condenses all the conversations, let's say, in the last 24 hours in a specific target group, let's say journalists, and you can see at a glance what these people are talking about, what are the hashtags they're using, what are the links they're sharing, or what are the other users they are actively discussing stuff with. And then you can see by these topics, okay, maybe this is an interesting topic. Maybe I should pitch them something that is according to this idea, or you might get into a conversation directly and say, I've got something to add here. So that's what I've been doing for Tame when I've tried to bring Tame into relevant conversations with journalists. I've been on the lookout. Okay, here are some topics. I identified those, and then I just gave them anything I could offer from a content perspective. So if they were talking about a conversation on Twitter that was happening, and maybe they needed some numbers about, okay, how many people are really talking about this? Is it a big topic? Is it a small topic? I might tweet to them and say, okay, we've just measured this with Tame, and I can say, well, this is not such a big topic. It's only been a couple of thousand people talking about it, and they really appreciate the extra information. So if you're a PR and you want to get into a meaningful conversation with people, I think that's where we can definitely help.
I really love that you said that, because I have done PR for quite a while, PR and branding, and I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs in general, they're kind of naive when it comes to doing PR. They think that it's just like you pitch your startup to a journalist and they're going to be super excited to hear about your company. And it's like, seriously, they don't care. If you have nothing to say that is going to give them more work as a freelance journalist, or give them a good content as an editor, they don't care. And yeah, it's so funny, because I'm in magazines all the time, and people ask me like, well, you're in magazines all the time, and you're always talking about your company. Yeah, that's a side note. I actually give them content. I see myself more as a provider for the journalists. They're looking for good contents and good stories. And then I give them 5 stories. They are going to, be in a design magazine. Okay, I can pitch you these stories about the design market. And then they choose which story they like. And then somewhere in the text, my company is going to show up, because they're grateful. But it's never going to be about my company, because that would be marketing.
That's just, I mean, you can just dump stuff on a journalist's desk and hope he converts it into a nice story about you. I mean, you just you got to feed these people right. You got to create relationships, and sometimes that relationship just starts with a very small tip or advice or some piece of content you sent to this person, and then it goes on from there. But if you just bluntly try to dump stuff on these people, I mean, you won't get far. Definitely not.
No. And I try to tell people, like, you have to reverse the idea. It's not about you. It's about the journalists. They're the ones who want to keep their jobs, and they want to have better jobs, and they want to be, they want to specialize in different areas. If you can help them in that journey, they will interview you, 5 times. But if you're not going to give them anything, it's giver's gain. You have to give them something.
Yep, I agree. I think in our case, we're also a little privileged, because we also had a tool that could be of use to them as well.
That's perfect.
So it was maybe a bit easier for us to get into some of these outlets, because it was always a double bind situation. They could make use of our tool, but they could also write about it. So that was good.
So I saw also that you can use it to identify and target influencers and opinion leaders. I'm thinking, directly on, a lot of people want to find kind of brand ambassadors for either their product or their, startup. How do you use that?
I mean, mostly you start out from a normal search. So you type in any kind of keyword related to what you're interested in, and you see what kind of people come up in these conversations. So our algorithm basically sifts through all the tweets that contain these keywords, and they will identify which people are in the center of the conversations, who get the most attention about this kind of particular topic. And then it's basically up to you what you do with this information. I mean, you can put these people on a list and follow them and see what they're talking about, or you can reach out to them directly. You can also look among your followers. If you're a brand, you can track your followers' conversations, and you can see who are the opinion leaders your followers are talking about. So it's a very direct channel to what interests your target group. And there are many more use cases to find this out. It was just a few now, yeah.
So I also saw that you can use it to track what people are talking about around your competition. I think that's a kind of an interesting idea. How does that work?
I mean, it's a kind of classical use case. If you want to identify what people talk about you should also always, as a marketer, look out and see what people are talking about your competition. So you just track, for example, a competitor's account and see what kind of conversations are being evolving around this particular company, or how do the followers of this company respond to any campaigns this competitor might be launching. And sometimes you'll see, okay, there are some conversations where people might be not satisfied with that product, or there's a lot of questions about something, and you could use that to your own advantage, if you may. So this is also a very powerful tool. And in our case, for example, there was a competitor that it didn't shut down completely, but it's a company that is in the process of shutting down, and I'm identifying any conversations around this where users are being questioning, like, what is happening? Is this company still working? Is it still in business? Can I still use it? And then I would just address these people and say, I've got an alternative for you, and this is our company. Maybe you want to try it out. So it's some manual work involved, but I think it's very effective.
Yeah, I mean, definitely getting to users or clients when they're in need of something, and also pissed off at your competition for shutting down. I mean, that's kind of like the perfect setting. I also saw that you can analyze lists, and I get really excited about this because it feels like, Twitter has become so huge, and if you get a certain amount of followers, it's hard to sort everything out. So I started using a lot of lists. I actually have over 30 hidden lists of different parts of the industries that I work in, just to be able to separate the game developers from the investors, from the business angels and competition and clients and everything. But I feel like it's not a very well-developed tool right now. So how can you use it for the lists part?
Yeah, I'm quite amazed that I'm talking to someone who's so deeply interested in lists, because I think it's one of the most underrated features in social media. And
yeah, it is.
That's right. And Twitter isn't pushing it too much because it still demands a lot of manual labor to set these lists up and to continuously feed them with new accounts, or maybe put inactive ones out. But yeah, we know that especially journalists have been making a lot of use of lists, and that's why we integrated an analysis of lists into our tool as well. It basically works the same way. It identifies the popular topics, the trends, and popular links and users in conversations in that specific list. So if you, for example, you want to know what let's say German politicians in the parliament are talking about, there's a list for that. So you can tame this list, and you will always know, okay, this is the talk of town in the German parliament. So it's definitely a very powerful tool. But like I said, it demands a lot of manual labor. But we're definitely an advocate of trying to push this feature even more. And I love pitching this especially to PR people who need to find out what's the talk of town in different target groups their clients might be having.
Yeah, and I agree. There's a lot of manual labor involved, but also, I mean, if you get it as part of your kind of Twitter moment, like momentum, when you put, every time I follow a new account, I will categorize them. And that I do that through putting them in different lists. So, because otherwise you just have this huge amount of following, and or followers, that you have no idea who is interested in what. And with this tool that you actually can analyze the specific groups, you can get even closer to your current customers, but also finding the people around you that you actually have some kind of real life connection to, what they're talking about, and furthering your network in both ways, both on social media but also in real life. I've started actually telling clients and fellow entrepreneurs to start using Twitter for the live tweeting feature of going to conferences, but also before you go to conferences. Like, find anyone who's talking about the conference before you go there and start following them in advance, because you'll get so much information and it's just easier to approach people. And everyone I talk to is like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I was like, why haven't you thought about this before? It's like the fastest channel to use. And if you put them in lists as well, you're going to have a pretty good CRM system just by tweeting people on your way to the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wish Twitter would implement a few more features, like searching for lists on Twitter and ranking them by relevance would be very nice.
Oh wow! That would be
also
perfect.
have an export for comma separated writable files. That would be nice. So yeah, I've been trying to advocate this here and to the Twitter team. Maybe at some point they will give in. Let's see. It's a very powerful tool. I love it.
Mm. And were you a collaboration partner with Twitter?
Where Twitter has a program where they take in startups or companies that they like to work with. It's called a partnership program. We're in their media ecosystem partnership program. So yeah, we're meeting with them on a regular basis and feeding each other with information about what's happening inside of Twitter, inside of Tame, and so on and so forth. And we go on from there. So it's just a mutual benefit in this way. I think especially for us, since we're on the German market, and there are not too many startups exclusively working with Twitter on the German market, I think we're also a nice asset in that case. Because we're always advocating Twitter in Germany. Like 1 or 2 years ago, I was giving a lot of workshops to journalists as well, trying to implement Twitter as a journalistic search tool into these groups. And these days I don't have to do that anymore. Like, every journalist caught on to Twitter. But in the beginning I had to explain Twitter first and then Tame. And luckily these days are over. I can go and right away I can explain what Tame is about without having explained Twitter anymore.
Great. So do you see any trends when it comes to your company's kind of market and industry that's coming up?
Well, it's one thing that I think is very, very essential, which is maybe a little global as well. Like, it counts for the whole internet. I think curation is just going to be very big. I think the more information there is out there, the more curation is needed. And you can basically see two trends. I mean, one trend is to curate with algorithms, and that's something that we're doing.
Yeah.
These algorithms are designed by men, and they do have certain principles, which are still human, but in the end, the algorithm is doing the work. And some people can be satisfied, some people are not. I mean, if you look at Facebook's algorithm, it definitely has some flaws, and people are complaining about it. On the other hand, sometimes some people don't even know that there's an algorithm on Facebook sifting through all that stuff. And then there's the other side, where people tend to manually curate information. So I've seen a couple of startups, new startups in our industry coming up that offer manually curated news feeds, where journalists would do the job of curating interesting items and then putting that into a nice little app and do the job of curation for the users. So I see these two sides. I don't know which one will eventually prevail, but I think it's very interesting these days to look out how people are going to make sense of the mess of that data that's out there on the internet.
I completely agree that curation is what's coming next, because after big data and just the massive inflow of social media channels we're using, and just, that the expanding, universe of online media, we have to have it. It's kind of nice to have Spotify as kind of the symbol for that, because in the beginning people were so happy to just be able to collect their own favorites, and you collected all of your lists yourself, etc. But now you pretty much just go to their radio station and you have your favorite artist and just like, yeah, give me something that is similar to this. Or you go to all of these lists they have, which is mood lists for okay, if it's 3 in the afternoon, probably some people will be studying, some people will be getting the kids, and then it's 2 lists like study to classical music, or calm yourself down while you're getting your kids from kindergarten. And I mean, I've stopped doing my own lists. I just I have my favorite ones that are curated, and that way I discover new music, but I get it in a really nice theme format. And yeah, I think that's gonna blow up, because we don't have the time to curate everything ourselves. We don't want to either. We're kind of the joy of doing your own playlists is it's dead.
I mean, and we shouldn't. I mean, if there's someone out there who's done the job already, then go and profit from this. I mean, it's the same with Twitter lists. I mean, you can just subscribe to these lists that other people have made. You don't have to do the work all by yourself. I mean, sometimes you have to because there isn't anything, but in terms of Twitter or Spotify, I mean, there's always something out there. And then there's another algorithmic layer above these lists where an algorithm should help you to find the right curated list. So it goes on from there.
Yeah. I don't think that the one or the other is going to, be the dominant one. I think they need each other to become that kind of, really good curated content. You have to have both.
That's a nice theory, a symbiosis of algorithms and humans for the future. Let's see how that works.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, thank you so much, Torsten, for coming to us and talking to us on Startup Cabin Podcast.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. If you go ahead and you do any of those things to contact journalists and you end up getting yourself into any kind of media, please let us know. We'd love to hear if this stuff is actually working for you. And let us know how the podcast is actually working out for you. This is supposed to be something to inspire you as an entrepreneur and to give you some inside advice into how to build your company. Let us know what's helping you. Let us know what else do you want to know. What is it you're struggling with? And we'll do our best to go ahead and dig deep to find those answers for you and to help you out. We also want to invite you to come over to startupcabin.com and subscribe to get updates for the podcast and the blog. It's all about developing you as an entrepreneur and your company. And we have a special resource we'll be releasing very soon that's going to help your company meet its goals for this year. And that's only going to be released through our email. So if you want that, please come over and sign up, and we'd be happy to send it out. And much success to you. Take care.